of us are generating under future skills and AI. My name is Pratima Harite. I lead corporate citizenship at Asia Pacific for Lenovo. I'm based out of Mumbai. Our focus is on technology for the underserved and STEM education, largely working on skilling. With me are esteemed panelists, CSR leaders who are my peers in other organizations. Most of them, or all of them, in fact, are from the technology company. And before I introduce you to them, I'd also like to say thank you to a visionary whose name is Bhomik Shah. 2013, he started CSRBOX. If you want to see his journey over the last decade plus, you should visit CSRBOX booth in the hall number 1. It's an exciting place, a lot of stuff that you can see there. I'm also thankful for my partners. I can see Shilpi in the audience here. I can also see Lakshana, I saw some time back, but welcome to this as well. While we are here, I would also take the opportunity to introduce the leaders by name. And I would, when I ask you the questions, I would request a 30-second, not minute, 30-second spiel about what you do as an organization and how do you support skilling in CSR. Starting with my extreme left, I did introduce you to Bhomik. And after that, we have Parminder, who's from Kyndryl. And then we have Shipra from IBM, Hemant from Redington, Antara from Micron. She's flown all the way from Singapore this morning, and Anurag from Capgemini. So to set the context, all of us in some way or the other set up pilots on future skilling and AI skilling at least 2 years ago. And while we have been doing that, we're looking at a system level transformation in AI for future skills. And this panel is going to discuss exactly that. What are some of the policy changes that we should be looking at? What are some of the changes that the organizations are trying to bring in, not just from an impact, but also from an outcome perspective? How are we bringing inclusion and long-term solutions that can help create an ecosystem? And with that, and without further ado, I'm tired of listening to my voice only. I'm going to ask a question to Shipra, and I can see Anurag nodding his head, so you want me to move very quickly to the questions. So Shipra, this question is for you. How should industry and academia jointly design the pedagogy for future tech and AI skills that translate into measurable workplace interventions and productivity, not just certifications?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Shipra Sharma. I lead CSR for IBM India South Asia. Pleasure to be here at such an important forum, one of the largest in AI across the world. At IBM, one of our major focus is education and workforce because today businesses, one of the major challenges is getting the right people for the right job. And that's where the majority of our investment is. We also provide our technology for ideas of innovation. So every year there's a topic and there's a global RFP, which NPOs, government organizations, or even academic institutions can apply for. And then also how do we use our talent for social impact. Um, in terms of your question, I think one of the most interesting things when we talk about future skills is that the future itself is not predictable anymore. The bar keeps moving from AI to Gen AI to agentic AI, and can go on and go forth. But the whole idea is that we have to prepare our learners to adapt. So that I think is very, very important. And I could share an example in this context to make it more tangible is the work that we do with AICT. We are working at a 3-level approach here. Number one is curriculum integration. So at IBM, we have a goal to skill 5 million people in AI, quantum, and cybersecurity by 2030. We announced very recently. And one of the things that we are doing through our platform is integrate AI courses into the way, into college curriculums. We have great examples with Narmudavalan in Tamil Nadu. We are working with Gujarat Knowledge Society along with CSRBOX. And that way, not only the students, even the faculty get prepared. So that's level one. Level two is it's not just important to provide the content. The school or the colleges already do that at an academia level. They need hands-on training. So project-based learning, and providing internship opportunities. AICT has a program of 60 hours of internship, and through IBM Skills Build, they do like 20 hours of hybrid learning, and then pick up a project. We have IBM mentors helping these students convert them into real life projects. And at the last level is infrastructure. We are setting up an AI lab inside of the AICTE office in Basant Kunj, where we will provide space for research in AI, and responsibly, how do we build that up? Because trust, and responsibility are very close to IBM. So, in a nutshell, I can go on, but I'll probably pause here.
Thank you, Shipra. And while we are on that question about learners, I'd like to just move to you, Anurag, because you speak and has spoken a lot about faculty development. So while we are talking about active learners in the form of students, my question to you is around faculty capacity building, which is central to building a sustainable AI and future skills ecosystem. So, in your view, what structured models can industry adopt to support faculty immersion programs and continue capability enhancement so that institutions are able to deliver industry aligned learning at scale? I mean, on one hand, you have students, but how do the teachers or the faculty, how do you train them to be able to take that forward as well?
Thank you for asking this particular question. The other day, I wrote an email to our skilling partners, asking them that when I look at recent plugin which got launched, which in so many ways made our some of our entry level courses in the skilling spaces redundant completely. Software testers, software developers, Java, Python, C++. These were the entry level courses that we were running through our digital academies. And we realized that we won't be able to, I'll say, uh, employ these young people whom we'll be training, because suddenly you have these plugins which will enable companies to do some of these entry level work without any human interface there, which in so many ways also made me think that when you look at so many engineering colleges all around India, and every year they are producing 100,000 of students there trained in, I'll say, computer sciences with a specialization on software development or software testing or on something else. They all will need to reorient their program there. Otherwise, what's going to happen in coming days or coming months will be where you'll have number of young people out in the market with their degrees in their hand with the skills which are obsolete, and this in so many ways requires us to work at a mission mode to ensure that our curriculum, our pedagogy, our teachers, our faculties are trained, exposed, and we make them ready to face the future there or handle the future there. This requires one, we all need to collectivize our energy. So it can't be the job of Lenovo, Redington, Micron, Kyndryl, uh, and others to do this. We all need to combine energies to ensure that we reach out to all these tier 3, tier 4 colleges there, ensure that their faculties are trained in the future skills there, in those domain that the market is going to look for. Simple stuff like uh, prompt prompt engineering is going to be something which will be in demand. It requires hand holding. Do we have faculties who can understand that particular thing? And the moment we recognize some of these skills which are needed by the market, and we start putting in our energies to prepare the young people for those skills, that's where we'll win the fight uh, for these young people. Otherwise, with the present skill set that we are training on, and that's where faculty training, we did some work on training our faculties to make them ready in understanding adult learners that these young people are. But domain wise, we never thought that we'll get challenged. Today, we are facing challenge on domains itself, and that's where there is a huge amount of need to work on curriculum, work on content, work on methodologies, work on uh, uh, preparing these faculties who may be attaining the age of 50, 55, where the whole orientation to change will be very difficult. So how you bring in the agility in their mind will be another thing that we all need to be thinking about.
As you can see, there are interesting perspectives about how learning changed when you brought in project based learning. And then while you're doing that, there is a need to upskill and reskill the faculty as well. I'm just going to take a little twist and come to you, Antara, because we are talking about learners, and both you and I have worked together on a STEM funded program largely for women. And my question to you is that gender gaps in STEM and technology, they continue to persist. I mean, whatever little bit we do is like a drop in the ocean. And this persistence is there not just in India, but also across Asia Pacific as a region. So, based on your experiences and initiatives, what are some of the practical ways that you can see organizations create and enable sustained partnership, career progression, and leadership opportunities for women, particularly those who are from the vulnerable and underrepresented communities?
Thank you so much, Pratima. And this is something that we think about on a daily basis because for us at Micron Foundation, we do very specifically look at underserved communities and populations to understand how do we support them to come into careers of the future. And actually, the interesting statistic is that last year, the Global Gender Gap Report said that at the current pace, it'll take us 123 years to achieve gender parity. So small number. I'm sure we'll all be around to see it. So that's great. But in view of the current situation, it is important to see what are the options and challenges that we have. One thing that I keep sort of reiterating both to our teams and to our partners is that women is not a homogeneous whole. It's not women in general. Each type of category that you sort of belong to provides an intersectionality in how you see technology. So are you low income? Are you coming from a tribal population? Are you coming from a particular sort of region which is more patriarchal, right? So a lot of the access to technology issues are really really front and center. But what I think is hopeful is that AI can actually provide that sort of once in a generation reset opportunity, because this can actually make women leapfrog the conventional sort of you take one step, you take two step, you take three step to climb up. You can actually leapfrog that completely. So from Micron Foundation, we look at STEM and technology pathways and how do we support that in order for underserved communities as a whole to be able to access careers of the future. Specifically in the context of women and AI, let me just give you three examples of things which we've seen to work. One is that we need to think about end-to-end design, much like what actually Anurag you also said. We have to think about what does the entire continuum look like. It's not one program, one project, but what does that entire continuum look like? From how do you get girls into STEM and AI at a high school level, at a university level, get them into those jobs and provide them the access to networks to allow them to continue on those jobs. So in India, as an example, we are working with UN Women on the WeSTEM program, which actually supports girls from ITIs to get access to AI literacy and other technical training. But what it does crucially is it looks at confidence building, because it's not so right now I don't know how many of you know. Um, so what is the percentage do you think of girls in STEM education in India? 10%, 30%? Anybody thinks it's above 40%? It's actually 48%. It's actually 48%. It's a really interesting thing. It's 48%. What's the percentage of girls in STEM jobs? Now that's below 20%. So yeah, it's at 18%. It's actually really shocking. So what's happening in the middle? It's not a lack of access to like curriculum, right? It's a lack of access to both confidence. It's a lack of access to networks. So that's what the WeSTEM program is about. It allows for access to peers, access to job partners, access to confidence building, even basic things like CV writing. A lot of these things are about how do you transact at an interview level. A lot of the times this is sort of a gap that we are not looking to fill. And in fact, if any of you are going to hall 14, please do go to the WeSTEM booth, which is there are amazing girls from the ITIs in Gujarat over there, and you can have a lovely conversation with them about how they are using AI. It's actually quite fantastic, because they are the generation that can leapfrog. I think that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. We are seeing similar sort of learnings with our work in Singapore as well as our work in Europe, where and you would think that this would all be different, but it's actually very similar. So just to sort of wrap up and say that this is an opportunity that we can't actually afford to miss.
While we're talking on inclusion, and we discussed about the STEM gap, I'd now like to also speak to Hemant. You do a lot of work in rural and peri-urban contexts from skilling, and therefore my question to you is, enrollment figures do reflect meaningful impact, but then what are the outcome-based metrics that we should be looking to evaluate the real success of AI? And therefore, particularly in terms of would it be employability, would it be income progression? What are some of your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Pratima. So, uh, we from Redington, I think we are in a distribution business. Globally, we are doing a distribution for all the tech parties, starting from Microsoft to all the, I think, the phones which you are using. So, we are a leading distributor for all the tech player. So, in terms of our foundation also, we are focusing a lot on skilling. Skilling is close to our heart. So, I think when you said about the enrollment, irrespective of AI skills or whatever skill it is, I think enrollment number doesn't say anything. It only says that the program you got, you mobilize few and they enroll in the program. I think the real outcome, if you ask me, so the real outcome start with the economic mobility, or it will start with their how the sustained economic opportunity they are getting, or how we are going to do some inclusive access, especially for the tier 2, tier 3 cities. While I'm talking from tier 2, tier cities, why I'm saying this, because recent past, I think, along with our technology partner Microsoft, we launched AI learning center across 5 different parts of the country, and which is majorly on tier 2, tier 3 cities. So what we did there, as you said, so enrollment, I think it's not going to help us. So how we are going to monitor that? So one is, which is very mandate for the partner, I think all will agree, we are skilling, we all are working. So the partner needs to train them, and they have to assure placement opportunity to them. So, but if you ask me in terms of AI, I think the placement, only the placement will not work. I think whether they're able to get a job in the AI roles, which I think is still a challenge in the market. I think over the period they will get it probably down the line in a 1 year or 2 year. So I think the partner or the partner like us, we need to track them whether they get the right kind of opportunity even after when they complete the program. So this is one area I think we all need to think of. At the same time, whether the income which they are earning, it is meaningful for them. Like I think in some of the cases, if you go into tier 2 or tier 3 colleges, sometimes their salaries are very, very minimal. Yeah, if you see them, even after doing a tech program. So that is one, I think one is very core while we do any skilling program, especially in AI. So whether it leads to the employability, which is one portion. Second, what I believe is that when you're working in a peri-urban area, especially I'm talking in the peri-urban area, as Anurag also said, yeah, the faculty development, I think we need to ensure, because when you're reaching to these colleges, even the students are there, even the branches are there, but faculties are not empowered. So how do you going to structure your foundational AI skill to advanced AI skills while doing that journey? How you're going to train the faculty there? So once you moved out, let's say after 3 years, at least the program, the continuity will be there. And while doing this, are we adding new employees to the college? Seriously, you are putting some effort there. If they are getting new employer, or even though we are getting new employer, at the same time, whether the hiring, you have seen there is a hiring demand is there. So what we also thought of, I think we started that also in many of our program. Wherever we used to go, we started upskilling the local ecosystem, especially the micro businesses or the smallest, all the small businesses. In our case, they are the channel partners. Yeah? Like Lenovo, we are also partner for them. IBM, we are also partnering. So we have almost 10,000 to 20,000 channel partner with us, where the staffing will range for 20 to 100 onward. So we started upskilling them also, especially on AI skills, so that when they are going to start the businesses, at least they know how to do deal with the product. So these are, I think, few things I think we are going to add. Probably that AI will help, especially in the tier 2, tier 3 cities. If you are going to add this on a program, especially the project-based learning, when we are saying, so the economic mobility, I think it's the one area which we need to think of. Otherwise, it's going to be what we are going to do is just you finish your curriculum and then you again move at. Even after lot many courses are available in the program. So in my opinion, I think it should start with employee economic mobility, and then it leads to the inclusivity also, and the same time how you are leveraging your ecosystem, how you are upskilling them. So then I think we can create overall impact, which we are all expecting, how we're going to increase, how we're going to do as an AI for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Hemant. An interesting perspective. Hemant and I were talking in the pre-panel discussion some time back, and Shipra, we missed you, but I think we, as when we are working on project-based learning, one of the elements that's coming out very strongly is innovations. Both IBM and Lenovo do hackathons, and I think the rest also. I'm not sure, but I know about IBM and Lenovo doing it. And from those hackathons are coming out very innovative ideas, and that then means that our students are getting ready towards looking at entrepreneurship as well. So while we are talking about future skills and AI, we also need to think about, does employability only end there, or are we looking at future innovators, and therefore what are we creating as an ecosystem? Just food for thought. And as I discussed it, take this, I'm going to segue neatly into talking to Parminder. Parminder is not a CSR leader. He represents policymakers. He's part of Kyndryl and represents government affairs. So, Parminder, for you, the question is largely around public officials. How do you think training for public officials in AI and cybersecurity would strengthen the government readiness? As an organization, as Lenovo has a responsible AI committee, and I'm sure all of us do in some form or the other. And yet you see, you worry over the night to say how are government officials or how is government of India looking at cybersecurity as we are building our skilling programs? And then therefore, how can industry-led CSR programs support this capability building in a practical way?
I think I think very pertinent question for those of for those of you who don't know about Kyndryl. We are a 4 years young organization. We spun off from IBM in 2021. We are a $15 billion organization listed in New York Stock Exchange. Um, in India, we have about 28,000 colleagues, highly talented colleagues. And what we do is we run mission critical systems, systems that cannot fail. You've got telecom systems. At the moment, let's say you send the message, in the background, there could be network latency, there could be a cyber attack happening. But the moment you click pay, that transaction has to happen. It's a mission critical system. Similarly, in aviation, we run Bangalore International Airport. We run Noida International Airport now. So the moment, so it's a mission critical environment. That's what we do. Banking and financial services, airports, aviation, manufacturing systems, and public sector. So very interesting question. And I think it's a very, we published something called a Kyndryl Readiness Report. And I would encourage each one of you to Google it, Kyndryl Readiness Report. It's right there on the top. What we did was we surveyed about 400 business leaders globally. And one of the key findings that came out is, out of the 10 roles that we have in the market, including public sector, 9 out of 10 roles in the next 12 months are going to dramatically transform. So in case of public sector officials, when we started, when we are interacting with public sector, the very interesting segment that came is how do you, as the government is thinking about Viksit Bharat 2047, as they're looking at advancing their systems, how confident are the public sector government officials in using AI and cyber? How informed are they when they are making decisions? How informed are they when they are creating architectures? So when we talk about AI readiness for a nation, I think government officials and public sector and AI readiness in the government is a big one. Now, intersect this with CSR. I think this is where, as companies, we have access to the latest innovations that are happening, the latest technologies, to the large language models. So what we did was we thought about this. We went back to the drawing board and we said that, look, here are these problem statements. Now, how do we solve that? And how could CSR be a change maker? How could CSR be a compounding impact? How could it create impact, a compounding impact? And that's where we spoke to this organization called Karma Yogi. I got Karma Yogi. Now, what I got Karma Yogi is, there's a learning management system. All the government officials, they are getting trained through Karma Yogi, most of the central government, and also state government now. And we said that if, let's say, some interesting content could be pushed at Karmayogi, and if public officials, in addition to all the other courses that they're doing, if they get yeah, if they get very practical, and not, we're not talking about very technical, but we're talking about very practical skills on AI and very practical skills on cyber. I think so. We've recently launched this. We recently signed an MOU with them. This last week, we also announced a couple of courses with them. And the interesting feedback is there's a lot of hunger amongst public officials, because this is a new area. And just like everybody else who's there right now in this AI Impact Summit, there's a lot of questions from public sector officials also saying that, oh, if I, let's say, go to chat GPT or anything, or any AI model, if I use this, the response that I'm getting, can I really use this in the organization? Is it safe enough? What kind of data can I share? If I have to adopt AI into the organization, how can I do that? And then as I'm using AI to develop design and design systems, how can I do this responsibly? How can I really take the use of benefit of AI, and how can I protect using cyber? So very interesting piece that's now emerging. And I think the impact through CSR is just manifold. Thank you.
Thank you, Parminder. And as I will just move next, I like to call Bhomik the Sutradhar, because he's been one person who's been able to bring the industry, the academia, policymakers together, and try and weave a fabric that really helps what he likes to call AI for Better Bharat. And therefore, my question to you, Bhomik, is from a national systems perspective, because you work with all of us. What governance architecture should you think India should be formalizing to ensure strategic alignment between CSR investments? Parminder spoke a little about it, but also from public policy priorities and evolving skill demand in AI. In some way, all of us have spoken about it, but from your perspective as the anchor, where and how do you see this moving?
Good. Thanks a lot, Pratima. Namaste, I'm Bhomik and I lead CSRBOX team, which is largely a purpose-driven organization where we work with philanthropists, private sector, public sector, and non-profit partners to really enable purpose-based program at the grassroots level through systemic partnerships. Building on that, fortunately, India has a very good social sector investment available to do anything which is required for the any sector to move in the right direction. We call it CSR as a compliance right now, but we must appreciate what government thought of 12 years back, that if we are able to speak in this panel today about AI future skills, the credit goes to the government which brought in the changes in the Companies Act by bringing mandatory CSR. Otherwise, I don't think that we would ever be talking about CSR, AI, and future skills together in 2026. So first of all, let's thank the system which really thinks of how future should be and how we enable partnerships. Coming from the lens of how we work and how we integrate public-private sector partnership, and that we understand the pulse of the sector from the needs and supply lens, India is much mature when it comes to AI and future skills from the activity lens. There are many things happening in campuses when you talk about future skills and AI. But there are a couple of challenges which we have observed, and then I will try to sink in that what architecture it looks like for us to be really have a feasible model which can work in a country like India, which is a federal structure as well. From that lens, there are three clear outcomes which we have seen in last 3-4 years of our analysis, and the way we are seeing next 2-3 years trajectory for future skills through CSR and couple of other system-enabled things. One, most of our investment has been geo-cluster based. Most of the projects have been programs and interventions have been in a couple of priority cities. This might be a priority for a particular corporate partner, a philanthropy, or maybe some government strategic alignment from the future perspective, which is anti-development for us when it comes to AI itself, because AI is supposed to be inclusive. But sometime in a disguised manner, probably we are leading or we are going forward, making AI an element which is excluding certain set of beneficiary who should be technically primary target, and nobody is to be blamed for this. Nobody is intentionally doing that. It's only that probably we are not able to pay attention to that side because we all have our own different priorities. So one is geo-cluster based thing. Another one is that we are very much into pilots because all of us have to start somewhere, and starting always is about pilot programs. So most of the campuses will have a period in terms of number of hours. It's very periodic CSR program in a particular campus. Then what happens that when it comes to scale, while CSR has its own limitation, private sector philanthropy has its own limitations, the institutions are not ready to take it to the scale because we never paid attention of building capacity of our institution. And it's not about just engineering colleges. We also need to, because we all are sitting here, we also need to think about that our 90%, 95% focus is still engineering colleges. Think about a country like India where engineering tech education is just 5 to 7% of the entire education system, right? And our higher education doesn't talk to technical doesn't talk to higher education right now. And that's happening in center as well as most of the states as well. So if we just look at things from the computer science, electronics, and so to certain degree communications, these three, right? Think about medical research. AI in medical research, we are not paying any attention to that entire segment, which is India's forte. When you talk about science, right? We are the pharma lab of the world. So we are probably not able to understand that how do we bring together this OPEX education institution to think about AI from a centralized architecture lens, which is very much missing. And if we miss the bus for next 5 years, will not have the demographic advantage, will not have the science related advantage or education advantage, which we are currently talking about. We have been able to partially address technical education from the lens that there are lot many things happening. There is AICT, which is the OPEX body, and they are taking care of it through state level DTs and other skilling missions. The problem which we foresee is that technically we will be left behind if we are not accounting for higher education and other streams of education when it comes to AI. So governing structure that can be there, and beautiful analogy, which I think if somebody is listening from Government of India, the way we had a GST council at the OPEX level when we rolled out GST in India, we really create an OPEX body which is technically representative of states, all kind of financial institutions which are there in the country, and a few private sector nominated nominees who really enabled you to think for next 10, 12, 30 years architecture for entire tax regime in India. Is there a possibility for India to look at that kind of governing structure for AI? Because if we are not able to do it right now, we'll really miss the bus. So can we have that representative structure from industry, from states, from center, and all type of education institutions together in that governing council, which really takes care of where is the demand coming from, what type of demand, which institutions needs to be enabled, how do you build capacity of your other institutions and the organizations which are taking care of institutions. The point that Anurag brought in कि हमारे 58-60 साल के जो लोग DTs में बैठे हुए हैं, जो लोग AI, those who are in AICT, what probably they might not understand what is the requirement of the sector. So we have to connect academia with the industry, and this industry has to then pivot something to really bring in that kind of new architecture.
Thank you, Bhomik. And when you were talking about technical education and engineering and all, I was just thinking, what about schools? And therefore, I'm just going to segue straight into asking this question of Parminder. What are some of the design principles that you think should guide the introduction of AI education in the public schools to ensure that it is responsible, it's age appropriate, and aligned with future workforce needs? And I'm particularly asking you this question from two elements. While I'm sitting here wearing the hat of a CSR leader, I've been a parent of a 22-year-old girl who has doing her master's in a prestigious college. She was asked to write a research paper, evaluate a research paper. 25 students in the college. All of them underwent an AI app that looked at their research paper for plagiarism. All 25 failed. And it took me 2 months to get her back on to her mental well-being, because you're doing your master's, you're in your second last semester, your grades are mattering, and then you realize that you flunked because AI did this to you. So for me, therefore, the question from a parent as well as a CSR leader perspective is, how do you keep your children motivated in a scenario like this?
I think you touched upon it. I think there's this whole focus around building AI competency versus behavior around AI, which you rightly touched upon, which is ethics. And I think as we recently started an initiative which is introduce foundational AI in schools, and we just launched this pilot in UP, in Varanasi and Ayodhya. We are looking at impacting about 50,000 students across 100 schools. And what we, while we were designing this, I think one of the key things that we came back, and I'm mindful of the time as well, um, one thing that came back to us was, should we focus on competencies or should we focus on the behavior? And I think at a school level, the moment we say, design, introduce foundational AI, it's got to do much more around ethics. It's got to to have basics of AI rather than competencies of AI. So I think fundamentally that's one. The second key part that came to us is that, look, why I chose maths and not biology. I'm an engineering graduate, and for most of us in the audience and on the panel, is because my maths teacher was able to explain maths in a much simpler way, and I was able to understand maths from her pretty well. So I think this focus, the moment we talk about schools, I think the natural progression is around teachers. So how the moment we talk about designing AI interventions in school, AI foundation in schools, it's got to do much more to do with how confident are teachers around AI foundation, how confident are teachers around um, explaining AI ethics, like you rightly said. If you're working on an original research design, you cannot. I mean, it's a behavior question. So I think those are two aspects. We're trying to scale our interventions, on AI in schools. We did very interesting stuff, which was on cyber security at grassroots. And this is what we did was we said that, look, all the technology is now going at grassroots. But now, as technology is also going at grassroots, there's this piece of digital vulnerability is also coming in. So we've got all the moms, who have the phones, and they came back to us and said, look, I feel very confident now on technology, but I'm also a bit scared about, look, I've got my bank link to my mobile phone, and you've given me this very amazing technology, but how do I safeguard myself? So we started something called Cyber Rakshak. So we said that, look, we're going to impact about 100,000 women in rural areas. And then when we started implementing that, interestingly, they came back and some of the moms, they came back and said, look, I feel confident now. I can fend off all the digital hackers. But look, my elder one, she's the one who's almost on the phone. So can you do something for her as well? So we created something called Cyber Scenic, we said, look, we're going to go and impact about 25,000 students on how they can protect themselves on cyber. So I think these are some of the experiences. It's been phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you, Parminder. And we have like what, 8 seconds to go, and 8 minutes to go. Oh, great. Okay. So, some of us here in our roles also represent Asia Pacific and ASEAN countries. And therefore, when Antara and I worked together on the STEM funding program with AVPN, we came together because each of us realized that what we were doing in India reflected some of the other markets that we were working in, whether it was Japan, whether it was Indonesia. Women empowerment, STEM education, having gender gap was something that was relevant there. And therefore, I'm directing my question to you, Shipra, first. In the global south context, because you also work across Asia Pacific, what scalable models do you see, first of all, any scalable models? And if you so, then what are the scalable models that you see that can ensure future tech and AI skilling reach underserved regions and without compromising on quality?
Thank you for that question, and I'll probably answer the second part first. The number one thing which is important is democratizing access to information. And that is something IBM has taken very, very seriously and investing millions of dollars. And we've taken a commitment to skill 30 million people across the world. So today, the platform that we have, ibmskillsbuild.org, runs across 160 countries. And that itself speaks to the content which is there. There are more than 1,000 courses. It starts from high schools. There is a special segment for college students where they can even download more than 700 IBM software free of cost as long as they have an institutional ID. And then there is anyone who's 18 plus. So we are also working with the vocational education segment. So it's globalized content, but localized through partners like CSRBOX and others who help translate it also in the regional languages when it gets implemented. So I think that's a success model that we have. And and so standardization of content and this and so converting that into micro credentials that are accessible anytime anywhere, so learners can even learn on the move. And we do understand that the current education system is not up doesn't prepare the learners for the workforce, so that kind of bridges the gap. So that's one. The second thing on the scalability, and if I've seen any model, so at IBM we believe in a client first, client zero approach. We have something, I'll take an example of Ask CSR, Ask CSR. And that's a Gen AI assistant, because today the way our education and workforce development programs are growing, and I just shared the scale with you and the context, it's really difficult to have a team of that size to manage this level of the volume of work. And so we have customized all of that in the Gen AI assistant to solve many of our problems so that the team can focus more on what only people can do, like managing our stakeholders, designing programs, and the lot of mundane work, gets kind of digitized using AI. So that is really a client zero approach. So before we kind of go out with solutions, and we have success stories with our Ask HR bot and several others, where we test it internally first and then go out. So the approach we apply for our clients is also what we are trying to apply for our community. So I think examples like this are not only scalable, they are reliable, they bring in trust, which I think is so important because data is a fuel for AI. And unless we kind of filter it, test it internally at the scale and the volume, it's risky what we put out there.
So, Shipra, if you see me nodding my head very severely like this and smiling, it's because Lenovo also does something similar. This is the first time I'm not able to open my mouth about Lenovo because I am speaking to you all. I will do that later. So, Antara, while Shipra spoke about scalability and leveraging, you and I have spoken quite a bit on some of the markets where we see the digital infrastructure lacking. India was in that space about 5, 6 years ago, but we see where India is. But there are markets like Indonesia, Philippines, where there is potential, but we know that the digital infrastructure is very similar to what India was 5 years ago. So, from your perspective, what are some of the design principles or the delivery models that you look at when you are trying to build programs where digital infrastructure is lacking?
Thanks so much, Pratima. And I think let me sort of take that from the AI angle more specifically, right? Because we are at the AI summit. So one thing which I think is really interesting is that AI is a great leveler right now, because there is no geography that has figured this out. There is not one country which sort of already knows the answer to how they are going to be inclusive of the entire population. So that's a really important sort of place to start. So there is a huge amount of opportunity for South-South learning, of course, between different countries, and India already has such amazing models out there. And I was telling you about the UN Women We STEM model, and there are others. But what the opportunity here is actually is to not recreate the wheel. When there is a problem that is being solved in one country, we are trying to ensure that we are being able to do, like replicate it in the context of another country. And you'd be surprised to know that we are not only doing this south-south, we're doing the south-north. So for the first time in my career, I'm actually taking models from India and Asia and like telling Germany about it, telling Italy about it, and being like, this is how we are solving for this problem. Because the problems are very, very similar about how do you actually build access, how do you ensure that there is integration. Now, the integration is a second part of this because um, a lot of the learners that we are working with across Asia Pacific and Europe look at AI as a sort of alien thing that they need to sort of engage with. But if you introduce it in familiar environments, whether it's polytechnics, ITI, schools, to your point, even at the school level, where you know how to engage with it responsibly, then there is a certain amount of impetus that gives you also. Another part of this that is sort of really important to think about is context. Whether it's AI learning or whether it's other kinds of skilling, many times we have this sort of one size fits all model ki ye curriculum hai, let's just put it out there, people will figure things out. It doesn't work. So even in the AI curriculum that we are working with across different countries, we are contextualizing it to the learner segment that you are dealing with. So if it's, say, women returning to work, like in Singapore, we are working on women who have career breaks and then are trying to come back into the tech workforce. It's very hard. It's very hard for them to access those jobs. So what is the kind of, and even if they do access those jobs, the LinkedIn data shows us that most of the jobs which are going to be replaced are actually the jobs which are currently being held by women. So how do we ensure that we actually get them into the augmented AI roles so that by the time they're coming back to those jobs, they are already being able to come to like a certain higher level of earning and learning. So these kind of contextualizations are really required, and there's a lot of potential for us to do the leapfrogging that I was talking about across both South South and South North. Thank you.
Thanks. If we finish the panel, we will give you the mic to ask the questions. Thank you so much. Bhomik, in the essence of time, I'm going to move to you with this question, and because we are on Global South. In the context of the Global South, we know India CSR can articulate a lot of lessons, learnings, and unlearnings. So, do we have a distinctive value proposition in AI skilling and institutional capacity building that reflects both inclusion and implementation capability that we can take to the Global South?
Thanks, Pratima. I think based on the work that has been done in last 4 or 5 years with various kind of players in the entire AI and future skills ecosystem, including support that the entire system gets from India-based apex body AICT and the state-level nodal agencies. There are 3 C's which technically are very important for any country to be ready for AI and future skills canvas. One you already mentioned, capacity building, and capacity building not just for the academic faculties. How do you change the entire thought process of the institutions which are operating on the continuum? Because if you are not able to ingrain that mindset of how things are changing, how job markets are shifting, and you are not directly connected with the industry, it becomes very difficult for you to map what is changing. Because we are really, as Anurag mentioned, we are just stuck by our curriculum as an institutions. So it's very important that you get connected with the industry, understand the right pulse of the sector, and build capacity of the entire system to be ready for that. Another one is collaboration, private sector collaboration with the government and public institutions to understand how they can help to create couple of pilots and pilot to scale, which ultimately strengthening your systems and institutions. And the third one is about collaboration. Private sector collaboration and convergence work together in terms of how do you converge your private sector capital, philanthropic capital to leverage your pilot, and pilot then becomes part of the system where government don't have to invest a lot for the pilots, but you technically take learning from the pilots to strengthen your system or build a new system. So capacity building, collaboration, and convergence probably will be the right keywords for all of us.
Mindful of the time and being respectful of the panelists, I was supposed to ask question number 2 to Hemant and Anurag. So I'm going to take a minute more because we started this panel late, and I'm going to ask both Anurag and Hemant. I have to ask this because it's related to collaboration. Anurag, you have great examples of collaborations that you have done with other CSR organizations as well. And Hemant, you and I have spoken about collaborations as well. So just 30 seconds from your view, Anurag, what have been your learnings? And Hemant, from your view, where do you see that collaboration going for your organization as well?
I'll take exactly 30 seconds. Collaboration is needed. As I said earlier, there's a need to come together and work on this. The challenge is huge there. All of us sitting in AI Summit will talk about how good AI is, but if you look at the other side, it will scare you. And if we do not combine our energies to work together, we are going to destroy ourselves there. From Capgemini side, I feel really happy that we are working with around 20 plus corporate in various skilling program or various education program there. Any other corporate who's willing to collaborate on this, I'll be more than happy to join in and do this particular work. So we need to keep our egos aside. We need to keep our, I'll say, some of our self-inflated identities aside, and we need to converge together to bring in the good thing that's happening in some other places there and do it everywhere. What Bhomik said, we have done enough of pilots. There's a need to take it to the scale and do it together. Thank you.
I think, as Anurag mentioned, I think we also work with many of the corporates, especially in our CSR program. So the recent past, which we're partnering with Microsoft, one, I think the collaborations help in terms of reaching out to the masses. I think you can't do alone with the limited fund which you are having. So if you want to scale at a pan-India level, like Bhomik also said, we all said, we need that collaborations. So I think the like-minded partners like Anurag, me, and not many people are trying to make the collaborations which could reach out to the largest. So I think this is the only I can say about the collaboration. So if you want to scale, collaboration is required. Apart from that, there are a lot many things, but I think big basis of the time condition, I would like to stop myself and hand over to you.
Thank you, Hemant. And just from this perspective, I want all the audience to know that you may have your views and your opinions on how collaborations should work. Remember that we as CSR leaders and as policy leaders, and even as advisors to corporates on CSR, we're trying our best to see how we can collaborate. And it's important for us to remember that if we align faculty readiness, institutional governance, industry demand, and responsible design, India will not only bridge the demand, but it will also bridge its own AI divide, but also be able to create an inclusive AI pathway for the global south. And we should use this as a positive perspective to think about. You're free to have your views and to ask us responsibly questions that may be relevant, but let's not make it argumentative or an activism process. Thank you.
I think before we break, there's one important announcement for just 1 minute so that we conclude the session on a high note.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, panel, for the first of all, for the really, really insightful session. Thank you very much for that. So we spoke about bridging the AI divide, but as we all agree, right, the real impact begins when we move from the dialogue to action, right? So to moving, and that what's exactly what brings us to this moment that for as part of this social impact commitment, Kyndryl has a meaningful initiative, AI Pathshala, right, which is implemented on ground by Bharat Cares and CSRBOX. So we are here to launch that program, that AI Pathshala, which is designed to bring AI learning into classroom, especially where access and exposures are limited, right? So this initiative, basically, it's focused on what exactly we had discussed today, right? That we bringing foundational AI literacy among students, right? Focusing mainly towards the school level, elementary level AI inclusiveness, for example, enabling AI ready educators also, right? The teachers steering we all discussed, right? We have to enable the teachers for that, and promoting the ethical and responsible AI, right? That's all very needed at the elementary level, these younger age when the students are very vulnerable about all the risk and all. The need to understand by the ethical implications and encouraging them to apply the AI knowledge, not only just learning, applying the knowledge of AI in building projects and prototype and strengthening the future for that. So that is all which this program AI Pathshala is about, right? So we are targeting as of now already Parminder mentioned about that, that 50,000 plus learners are targeted by this program, and across 1,000 plus educators. That's all being targeting to enrich about AI knowledge, and we are targeting more than 250 schools for that, right? So uh, for that, I just want to call on the stage Mr. Parminder Singh Kakria, Vice President, Government Affairs and Public Policy for Kyndryl India and APAC region, Ms. Guruja Mukund, Director, Global Citizenship and Sustainability, India and ASEAN, Ms. Gitanjali Gaur, Social Impact Leader, CSR, Kyndryl India, Global Citizenship and Sustainability, and Mr. Bhomik Shah, Trustee Bharat Cares to launch.
May I please request speakers to stay?